for giving me some time and talking to us today. I was wondering if I could start by just asking a bit about Kennington and the area in which you work.
Yes, so I'm based here as a financial resilience coordinator in St Luke's Hub, which is a community hub for the people of Kennington. Our focus has been, since we opened about 3.5 years ago, all on financial health and building people's financial resilience. And this very much feeds into the rest of West London Mission's work. So we work across London in a range of different projects, all focusing on empowering people who have been affected by poverty, trauma and homelessness. So St Luke's Hub in Kennington is our project that really focuses on prevention. So we're really hoping to work with people before problems kind of spiral out of control and help people to gain the skills and the confidence they need to tackle things before their financial situations worsen and lead to problems such as homelessness.
And Kennington and this area here, I mean, what is the situation most people live in? What are the sort of nature of the people who you engage with most?
It's very mixed. I mean, we open our doors to anyone, and we're very kind of informal over the people that come through our doors. So it's a mixed community, but generally the people that come to us for help are people on very low incomes, either in work on low incomes or out of work and claiming benefits. It's people on low incomes, and other than that, very diverse in terms of ethnic groups, ages, gender. It's very mixed. I think these problems are affecting a very wide spectrum of people at the minute.
Is Kennington particularly bad in London terms as area?
I think
a lot of poverty.
Yeah, well, Lambeth as a borough is quite high up, I think, in the list of boroughs in terms of deprivation. Kennington, I don't necessarily think it's particularly bad. I think, as is the nature with London, almost every area you go to, there's a mixture of poverty alongside, a lot of wealth, and there are some very wealthy kind of streets and squares in Kennington as well. So it's not. I don't know if it's particularly bad, but certainly what we see is very bad.
And how long have you been here yourself?
I've been here for 3.5 years.
Since the beginning?
Yes.
And what got you? What's your background? What got you into this area of work?
I've always worked in homelessness services, so in various voluntary sector organisations. Usually, at the other side of it, more like helping to pick people up once they have, hit that rock bottom, ended up on the streets or in a hostel. So it was, it's quite a nice change for me to be working in the community and then hopefully preventing some of those problems.
So most of the people who come here do at least have housing and so on, and not yet on the street?
No, most of the people who come here are in housing. I mean, the housing is a big problem. The housing is often in a very poor standard. Usually they're in either council housing or other forms of social housing.
And you talked about financial health and financial resilience. What do you mean by that?
I think financial resilience, we mean helping people to feel in control of their situations and strong and able to cope when things go wrong. So it's not about preventing people from ever entering financial difficulty necessarily, but it's giving people that strength to bounce back and to have the savings that they need and the skills and the confidence that they need to help them get through bad periods. Financial health, it's another term. I suppose that how I think of financial health is linked to mental health, really, and well-being. It's feeling secure, feeling empowered to sort out problems and to access the financial products and services that people need, and to be included in society in financial terms, but it's very closely linked to social inclusion as well, and digital inclusion these days.
And what sort of problems typically do people come with? Do they tend to get in contact with you when they have problems, or they think they're going to have problems, or they've had a hard time recently, or what?
Yeah, this is a problem that we're continually battling against, getting people to come in sooner rather than later. Often problems can be prevented, but people don't come for help until problems have got really bad. So we try and do a lot of work in raising awareness of our support and of all the advice service locally that can help people, so that they do get help early. But I think the nature of financial problems are that people are very embarrassed sometimes, they're very scared, they do tend to bury their heads in the sand. It's something that people just don't like to address, and so it's tied closely to various emotions, and that doesn't help. It doesn't mean that people get the help early. So often people come in a state of crisis. They're about to face an eviction, or they've had multiple letters from creditors and now they're being threatened with court action, or their benefits have been stopped. And their benefits have been stopped because why do people's benefits get stopped? A range of reasons. Often the people that we see are failing the work capability assessment, which is the assessment to determine whether someone is capable for work or not. So they're people typically with health conditions or disabilities that don't feel able to work themselves because of those conditions, but they're being found by the DWP or the agency the DWP pays to do that work, to be capable for work, and that would mean a change in benefits. So
they're found not to be capable of work, and therefore they have to get a different set of benefits.
Yes.
And that creates a disruption and a time lag possibly while they try and access the new benefits.
Yes, exactly. And a lot of confusion and a lot of trauma, because these are people who, as far as they're concerned, and often as far as their GP is concerned and other health professionals, are very ill. They're very ill, be it mental health or physical health. They're not capable of work, we would say. But there's a discrepancy, and it's a big problem between what health professionals say, the professionals that know these people, and what the DWP work capability assessors find in those assessments.
And what is there any particular pattern with what tips people into crisis? Do you see particular debts, or is it housing costs that they can't manage, or insecurity in employment, or what are the sort of? Is there anything typical, or is it come in all different?
It is a range. It's very hard to think of a typical case, but often you're right. Housing is very closely linked. Work is very closely linked. The type of employment people are accessing these days, the 0 hours contracts, is very kind of insecure, irregular, doesn't allow people to plan or feel secure. Housing, the cost of living, across the board, I would say the biggest problem people are experiencing is just their incomes are too low, whether it's through benefits or work. They don't have enough to live. They don't have enough in real terms, in absolute terms. Someone on benefits, on universal credit now at the minute, they could be having to live off £35 a week, which is very, very low, and I
that's
just can't
after
imagine
paying for housing, or
after paying for their housing costs.
So this is food and clothes and all the
bills, clothes, travel. This is the standard amount that someone would get. Says just a single person without any particular health conditions, just unemployed, looking for work. The amount is £73 a week, but particularly with universal credit, which is the new benefit coming in, the it allows for a substantial chunk of money to come off, to be deducted from people's benefits to pay back an advance payment, so a loan that they've had, or to pay back rent arrears and other kind of payments towards debts. So up to 50% of their standard allowance can be deducted at source to cover those arrears that they might be in, or to pay back a loan.
And this wasn't the case previously with normal...
No, previously there was a cap at about £3.75 per debt, which was a lot less. So
the universal credit system has brought in a much bigger requirement to pay off debts much quicker.
Yes, basically, yeah. It's now 40% of someone's standard allowance that can be deducted for paying back arrears, 50% if it's rent arrears, and previously, it was about £3.75 per debt. So even if you had several, it never got to that 40% mark of someone's allowance.
And what's the justification for substantially increasing debt repayment requirements?
I don't know, sorry.
But that, yes, I can imagine if suddenly 40-50% of your disposable income disappears.
Yeah.
Can people renegotiate debt repayments? I suppose this is where you come in.
Yeah, this is where we come in.
What you can do to help people in these situations.
Yeah, and we find it really, really hard. It's for that particular question, we're getting very little flexibility from the DWP. They're unwilling to budge there, and they don't take into account other debts people might be in, or their financial circumstances. It's just, £73 isn't enough as it is, but that has been assessed as the minimum by the government. So to take people 50% less than that it just doesn't seem I don't know what the word, it doesn't seem moral or fair at all.
And the DWP, these are debts that are presumed, are they all debts to government agencies that effectively they're demanding? Are those the accumulated debts they're getting at, or to private people as well?
It'll be mainly rent arrears to social landlords, repaying loans to the DWP, council tax arrears as well. The only private companies might be utilities companies, but they wouldn't deduct for a credit card debt or other non-priority debts.
So people could also have all those private sector debts as well, which are they're being forced to repay on top.
Yeah.
But DWP will not. I mean, normally with private sector debts, you can renegotiate levels of payment, but DWP won't do that. In
our experience, no. It's very, very difficult to even find anyone to talk to about that who has the power to be flexible. But no, it's relative. Yeah, it's new. That 40% is new, but it doesn't seem there's no.
And this is since.
Universal credit has been coming in since 2013 around the country, but Lambeth has only just become full service in our job centres towards the end of last year and early this year.
And you've seen a huge an effect of that, have you?
Yeah, that particular problem is very significant from the people that we see.
And what else can you do for people? Because obviously people are dealing with this hugely complex world, insecure employment, ill health, the DWP, the new benefit system, etc. And you are sort of there faced to try and do something. What's within your power to actually help?
It's difficult, and sometimes it's very demoralising because we feel like we can't do very much to help. But I think we do. First and foremost, we're people that people can come to and not be scared of being judged or being negatively viewed. We're very understanding from the beginning. We listen. I mean, these problems have often built up for months before people come and get help. There's a lot of fear there. I mentioned, embarrassment, anxiety. There's a lot of the psychological impact is massive. So, firstly, just to have a meeting with someone who is going to listen is a lot in itself. We then help people to work out what the priorities are, help people to see their problems more clearly.
So I was just checking that it was working. We might have to go back because those two noises probably got recording. So just going through again what you can do to help people. So
we it's a big thing in itself, just having somewhere like this, somewhere informal, somewhere that people feel comfortable and feel that they're not going to be judged or viewed negatively because of the situations they've found themselves in. So we're very open, and so first of all, that's a huge reassurance to people that they can talk. There's people here to listen. We then, I think, a very simple thing that we do with people, but is really important, is help them to just feel a sense of clarity over what their situation is and what the problems that they're facing are. So we often spend a good hour at least helping people to open all their mail. So a lot of this post is built up for weeks, months, years even, and this psychological burden of having this unopened post is a huge barrier to people even moving forward or tackling anything. So we help people with that. We get everything out in the open. We draw up an action plan looking at what to prioritise, looking at which specialist services they should contact. And then we guide people through that. So we will work with them over a period of weeks while they access specialist advice, while they deal with all the different agencies they need to deal with. And we're not doing that for people. It's really important that we build people's skills to manage these things themselves. So we push people in a safe space. It's not intimidating or as intimidating for them because of where we are and our approach. But we do push people to make phone calls for themselves, to write letters, to fill in forms. So they are learning all the time and becoming more confident to do these things. But it's really difficult. The bureaucracy of the benefit system, the local authority, it's so complicated. It's so complicated for us to understand as professionals, let alone someone with so many other pressures in their lives.
And presumably sometimes English is not their first language, and reading and comprehension are challenges.
Exactly. Yeah, that's. Literacy, numeracy skills often are very low. People's ability to articulate their needs or their situations is very low. People, it's difficult for people to get their point across, to admit that they need help. English, like you say, we have a lot of people who have, in this particular area, Spanish as their first language, sometimes very poor English language skills. So they're all added barriers, learning difficulties that people face.
So is it mainly, because there's two different things here in a way. One is trying to deal with the bureaucracy and work out what's going on when their situation is. The other actually just budgeting and trying to keep within a budget and things like that. And what you're sort of suggesting, it seems to me, is that the more the sort of dealing with that bureaucracy and understanding it is the sort of the biggest challenge, I suppose.
Yeah, often it is. Yeah, the benefit system is up there as one of the most complicated things that people have to deal with, and helping them wade through that, all the different letters that often are contradictory, that the mistakes that are made, that are beyond people's control, the people we see's control. That's a huge part of it.
And imagine that people who've suddenly shot down to half the amount to live off, I mean, how have they coped with that? Have they often quite taken out loans or payday loans? What sort of forms of credit do they try and access to make up for the lack of money or that they're getting from the benefit system?
Yeah, it varies. I think there's a lot of informal money lending going on. I wouldn't necessarily go so far as to talk about loan sharks, purely, we haven't seen evidence of that, but I do know that is a rising problem. But it's more, informal lending between family and friends, people helping each other out. I think, that is common. But a lot of people don't have those social networks, and so they will use credit. To be honest, we don't see too many people talking about payday lenders, and I don't know why that is, because I'm sure the use is there. I think there's a lot of stigma attached to using payday lenders, and probably people are quite embarrassed to admit that. So that's one of the ones we actually see very little of people admitting to. But yes, certainly if people can get credit cards, they'll have credit card debts sometimes. We do try and direct people to the credit union, which is a more local, ethical alternative to the banks and to other lenders. So yeah, the credit union does help people out too. But yeah, the food banks, we do an outreach at a local food bank once a week, and they're picking up a lot of the pieces as well. People who are in work, who just don't have enough to eat. Not just in work, but it's significant the amount of people who do go to the food banks who are working, and I think we hear a lot about it in the press, but it's true. We do see that.
And you've got this network of money champions. And they are sort of like outreach or a sort of network to support their neighbours and so forth. And are these people you've helped initially and have got through it and got to a better place, if you like, or are they just people who are already exceptionally good at sort of managing the system from the start?
A bit of both, yeah. We opened that up as broadly as possible because we just wanted these conversations happening in any form that they could be within communities. So we have quite a big chunk of those money champions who are people we've supported and who then want to share what they've learnt with others in their communities, which is brilliant. Other people, they're already trusted figures within their communities, such as like church leaders or people on tenants and residents associations, people within local organisations like children's centres, schools, GP surgeries. That Money Champions network is very, very broad and represents a massive spectrum of Lambeth communities. So, it's.
And is this? How long's the Money Champions network been?
That has been in existence, that project, since I started, so around 3.5 years. We've had to change the focus in recent months because of how that work is funded and because of the need. So now it's very much focused on universal credit, partly because that's what the local authority who fund that work wanted us to focus on. But we were coming to that conclusion ourselves too, just because it is a huge issue causing so much anxiety and confusion at the minute. So we thought we'll change the focus of our training to keep a lot of the Money Champions content, but channel it or frame it in terms of how universal credit will impact people.
And have you got examples of people who've come through the end, who've managed to find a way through universal credit out the other end? Any good sort of stories? No, not that have come because it's so new. I'm sure we will, but at the minute, because it is so new in this area, there's nobody that I can think of who is claimed universal credit and then found work and no longer claims it. But we have had people who are managing their claim very well, and I think this is the thing with universal credit, that it's not inherently a bad idea. There's a lot of things in universal credit that will genuinely help people. Such as they've made it a lot easier for people who are working on 0 hours contracts or who have fluctuating incomes. So previously it was a big administrative headache for people to have to submit change of circumstances forms to the council for their housing benefit, for instance, every time their income changed. Now, because of universal credit has this new real-time information sharing with HMRC,
they no longer have to update their changes of circumstance. So their claims are assessed based on what they earned the previous month from work, and that's automatically communicated through HMRC without the claimant having to do anything. So that, for instance, will smooth things out and hopefully take away a lot of the stress people are facing who were in that sort of work. A lot of people really like the online nature of universal credit. It's very, for the people who have the right skills, it makes people very independent. They can communicate with their work coach from home. They can do it in the middle of the night if they want. It's very flexible in that respect. And it is very much focused on independence and getting work. And for a lot of people, it's helpful. I think the problem that we see, though, is that the gap between the people who can deal with that system and the people who can't is just widening, because as more and more people become included and become digitally included and financially included, and I don't know, the gap is widening, and the people at the bottom who just can't deal with the online nature of universal credit, they've never used a computer before in their lives. It's just too much for them to deal with. They're the ones who are really going to struggle with it. And
so it's sort of ironic that a benefit system that's meant to presumably support the most vulnerable, who are presumably the digitally excluded, are actually effectively excluded by the benefit system.
Yes, effectively, yeah. Similarly, the provision, so a lot of these people that we're talking about used to or use post office accounts. On universal credit, post office accounts can no longer be used, so everyone has to get a bank account. And again, that is just not as simple as it sounds for a lot of our clients. They don't have the necessary ID. They might be coming out of prison, they might have been on the streets, they don't have a proof of address, maybe they just don't even trust the banks. They have, it's just not, it's not as simple as one might assume to get a bank account. And yeah, it's a huge barrier for them. They need that account to have any money at all. So
the digitally and financially excluded are benefit excluded.
Yeah, potentially, and that's where we need to focus our work, because they need that money.
So you're particularly focusing on those sort of excluded people to try and give them the skills and...
Yeah, so in this room here we run 2 sessions a week called DigiBuddies, which is where people sit one-to-one with a volunteer and build up their confidence with doing things online, like filling out online forms, opening email accounts, that sort of thing. We also have a computer class, a formal class, which is delivered in partnership with a local college. Again, just building up basic skills. And yeah, we need to start forming some relationships with local bank branches. That's our next area to focus on, because we haven't done that yet, but the need is there now with universal credit. And yeah,
to help people get through that barrier of actually having a bank account.
Yeah, because it seems a bit arbitrary. I think all the banks do have their minimum criteria in terms of ID and proof of address, but if you can form a link with local staff in local branches, apparently, but this is something we need to look into, you can get some flexibility. And then if we formed a good relationship with a local branch, we hope that we could then send people down there, and they would be at least, greeted in a respectful way, and, given a meeting to see if they could open a bank with them.
Well, it'd be amazing what you managed to achieve there. Flexibility and banks are 2 words that don't immediately seem to string together in my experience, especially around that sort of thing. No. So looking forward, one thing you've suggested is better links with banks. How more broadly, in terms of the future of this community that you're engaged with, do you see positives or negatives? What's your sort of take on what and where you want to go next?
I think we've got a lot of challenges ahead of us, but the resilience of people continues to always, surprise us, and It's admirable. You see people struggling on such low incomes coming together here, forming friendships, supporting each other. And it's not, even though we're dealing with all this awful stuff every day, it's not completely demoralizing. We see so much here. We see people as individuals. We see that, okay, they've come here because they've got a certain problem, but they're people who have a great deal of experience, knowledge, skills, and I think tough times do bring people together, and that is quite uplifting. It's sad to accept the context that's happening within, but I think it's going to need people to come together more and to support each other, and I think it's great to work in a project that facilitates that.
So really, resilience is more about community resilience, linkages, relationships, and people helping each other, rather than individual resilience in some ways.
Yeah, exactly. That's in our central aims for this financial resilience work. We specifically distinguish between the two, individuals and then the community as well. It's definitely a huge part of it.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much, Laura. That's been absolutely fascinating. I wish you all the best moving forward with the huge challenges you face.
Thank you.